Hello friends, and welcome back to my channel for part 4 of this KITT from Knight Rider build. I was hoping to do this whole thing in 4 parts, but I'm thinking it might be closer to 5 because there's a lot to be done on this car. A few of you have been asking me, hey, what's going on with KITT? Where's it at? And I posted a YouTube short of Michael Knight completed, and that got interest kind of reignited in the process build here. So I wanted to get back to it. You know, to be quite honest with you, when I was in the middle of working on this heavily when I first started the project, my dog got very sick and eventually passed, and she was like the center of my world, and I partially put this on pause, I think, because of just the association with that time and this build. So I'm trying to get back on the horse with it. I am excited to finish it. You know, I've been doing more research on KITT and the screen use versions of the car, and the more I learn, the more complicated this build gets because there's just a lot that I want to get correct. It won't be 100% screen accurate. It's just kind of the nature of the beast. But I think it's going to look pretty cool. I have made some progress on this off camera simply because I just wanted to get it done. And sometimes setting up the camera to record it complicates the process. And I was like, you know what? I have it in me right now. Let me just get some of this out of the way, and then we'll start with a progress update. So let's zoom in a little closer, take a look at what's been done up until this point since the last video, and then we'll get to making some more headway on it. All right, so first let's take a look at Michael Knight here. I got him all done. I'm debating on putting some hair on him, like getting some brown yarn. If you've watched some of my other videos, you'll see that I'll do kind of like a rooted hair look on these figures sometimes. And I think his would really look cool with that, but we'll see. I'll probably do a test run and see how it looks. But for now, here he is with sculpted hair. And I gotta say, I'm really impressed with how much this was able to look like Michael Knight. If you recall, I used a Jensen Ackles head sculpt that I got. I sculpted new cheekbones onto him and a chin and the hair and stuff, and some other features, and got what I think is a pretty acceptable Michael Knight. So happy with that. The body and the outfit were already done. I do want to kind of manipulate this jacket a little bit because it's doing this weird fold out thing, so I'll probably try to kind of glue it in place to look a little more accurate. But yeah, as far as a detailed, fairly realistic looking 1/12 scale Michael Knight, I think this is probably the only one in existence. So pretty cool. And then let's look at KITT himself here. So in the last video, I trimmed off the lettering on the tires and put some epoxy sculpt on them to make them look more like tires with air in them. I've since painted those, so those are looking pretty accurate right now. We've got that on both sides here. I also did some interior work. So I did a flat black on the rear shelf. That's going to get painted kind of the tan color to match the interior. I also painted the dash black. So that's pretty much ready to go. It needs a little bit of paint down here. I did print off the graphics that I was able to find online for like the gauge cluster and stuff. What ended up happening though was I sized them all correctly in Photoshop, took it to FedEx office. They printed them off, on some nice quality paper that I was going to use to stick in here. I got it home and it was way too small. And I did like a bunch of them in different sizes to try to account for that. But the problem was that for some reason they reduced the print size when they printed it. So I'm going to have to blow it up even more, take it back and do it over again. In the last video, you'll also have seen me build these door panels. So I got these painted up and I put this jewelry box felt on there to mimic the carpet that you would see on the interiors of these. And it really just helps to level it up to be, like this kind of mixed media realistic approach to it. So I really love how this turned out, and I can't wait to use this throughout the interior for the floors and whatnot. I also placed these pieces of styrene in here so that it would close the gap, because when the shell of the vehicle is on, there was like a gap between the wheel well and the body of the car. So that's filled in. This will be covered with more of this faux carpet material. And then I started the steering wheel. This is a mixture of obviously a wooden dowel, styrene. These are like trim pieces from some packaging that I saved, because if you watch this channel, you know that I save everything. They were like corner protectors on a box that I got from overseas, and so I just took those because they were already black, cut the shapes out, glued it all in place, and then
I have the steering wheel piece actually mounted on a magnet, and then there's a nail right here that it sticks to. I did that so that the yoke can move independently of this, whatever, I don't know what you call this, but it had some like buttons and command things on it as well. Next up, I need to sculpt on the kind of joystick handles of this steering wheel on either side. And then I need to sculpt on the headrests for this. The original plan was to drill some holes in here, stick some little wooden dowels in there as support pieces, and then sculpt the clay over it. So I think that's what I'm sticking with. I need to build a little box here that is part of the center console. And then this is the Prindle, or the, you know, park reverse drive low thing. And I need to put a shifter in there. And I was looking at photos of the original shifter in KITT, and I found a piece to use for it. This is actually part of a scope from a, like, I think this is from a McFarlane Walking Dead 1/18th scale figure. I just had this gun in my fodder bin, so I'm gonna drill a hole and that's gonna go right there. And then once all that's done, I can spray paint this whole thing and start laying in the carpet. So I'm very excited for that step. And then that's gonna get us pretty far along. Still remaining, I gotta do these little trim pieces here on the nose. I do want a better solution for the dash. This is a great placeholder, but it's such an organic shape that it's hard to make out of something like styrene. This is probably something that ultimately, if I want a real version of it that looks right, I would have to like design it in a 3D modeling system and then have it 3D printed. I may do that eventually, but I really enjoy like the hand built aspects of these things, and so I'm going to try to hold off on that as long as I can. And then I have to also convert this into a T-top. I think the move is going to be to place a piece in here, like a center support piece, and then just do kind of like a faux T-top rather than cutting this body up and hoping that it maintains its integrity and that kind of thing. And if I'm not mistaken, that's what they did with some of the screen used vehicles. I could be wrong on that, but I know that the T-top Trans-Ams had a lot of rust issues because they leaked really badly, and so that's why there aren't a lot of like surviving kits today, in part anyway. So I think it could be kind of a fun nod to that legacy of making a fake T-top on here just so that it looks right, because again, I think that's what they did with some of the stunt cars and whatnot that they had. So that's what's on the list. And then of course I got to put the lighting in here as well once I get this all finished. But a little bit of body work to be done too. You know, I've sculpted some epoxy clay on here to fill this gap in, and that's going to be real bumpy, I'm sure, despite my smoothing efforts. I'm going to need to sand those down. My goal for this is to at least get the interior stuff sculpted and ready for paint, then paint it up. So I'm going to get to it. All right, checking in here. I got the seats molded. I ended up doing down the sides too because I was looking at some reference photos and that's what they're shaped like. So I wanted to try to get it as accurate as possible. These are real lumpy, so I'm gonna have to do a lot of sanding on them to get them to be smoother. I also did these little guys for the steering wheel. These are like the hand grips. So these will go on either side like that. The clay is still drying, so I don't mess with them too much, but I did make little indentations for the side of the steering wheel. So that'll go in, and then I'll have to super glue those. And once it's glued, I will hit it all with some black spray paint to make it all uniform. This is what I used to sculpt that stuff. It's Aves Epoxy Sculpt. It's a 2-part compound. I've used this on the channel many times before. Basically, you take equal parts, you mix them together, and you've got about an hour to 90 minutes of working time before it starts to cure. I'll have an Amazon link for this stuff. It's really great. I use it on all kinds of projects. It's the same thing that I use to sculpt like the facial features onto Michael here from that other head sculpt. So I'll check back in once this is painted, and we'll see it start to come together some more. All right, so here's the interior. I got it painted. I did a coat of the tan color first, and then I masked it all off again and did a coat of black on this part. Overall, I'm happy with how this turned out. The seats look much more accurate now, and once I get the carpet in here, I think it's really gonna look correct. I did find a solution. There's this kind of like hump here. I have this tube that something was mailed to me in, so I think if I can cut it low enough and at an angle for this, I'll be able to put that down and then put the carpet material over it, and it's going to do what I want. So I'm excited to try that out. This is where we get into the fun stuff for me. The little details like doing these door panels where I can add the little faux carpet to it, and you know, just like pieces that really start to bring the whole picture together. It makes me very happy. So all right, so getting ready to make a pattern for the carpeting. The one nice thing about this setup of toy car is that the way that this is like vacuum form molded, you get this like negative space, and because of that we have a nice easy thing to trace for where the carpet should go. So there we have a pretty good approximation of where the carpet needs to go. Now one nice thing is that this is symmetrical, so we just have to do one side and then we mirror it for the other one. Now here's the material I'm using for the carpet. This is like a jewelry box felt velvet material, and it's sticky on one side. And we're gonna lay it inside, and I want to see how close we got it. So that's pretty good. It's a little long. Ooh, those paint fumes. I'll tell you what. All right, so that's a pretty good fit. So here's what it'll look like once it's glued in place. I'm quite happy with that. It is progress report time. So as you can see, the interior is pretty much done. I've done a bunch of stuff here. I went in and did some dry brushing on the seats. I don't know how well it's going to show up on camera, but basically I added some lighter colors like to these raised parts and here and all, pretty much everywhere, just to give it a little bit more dimension so it wasn't one flat color. It's a lot more visible to the naked eye. But it's also something that's supposed to be subtle. Like I don't want it to be super obvious that the strokes are there. I just want it to have like an overall effect. I added this center console piece. This is more the insulation foam that I made the dash out of. So that's where the buttons and whatnot go. I inserted the gear shifter, made this piece in the center and the back here. Now, this is something that the real kit had. I believe it's like where, I think I mentioned this earlier, where it's like, you know, the transmission, drivetrain, all that stuff goes through here, I believe. There's this bump between the rear seats and the back. For this is actually very simple and a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. I had this tube and I just cut a section out of it and trimmed it to match, and then I put the felt over it. And it's in there pretty snugly, but it's not, I didn't have to glue it down or anything. Like I can really just pull it out if I want to, but it's also staying in place perfectly. And then I did line these wheel well areas. It's not the cleanest thing, but you know, you won't see it. I just wanted, if you really do like look into the car from this angle when the shell is on it, you can see like this bottom area. So I just wanted to have it covered up so that it wasn't just the raw paint. And then I got the steering wheel done, and it does steer because it's on a magnet. So when this is all together now, and these the door panels I have just sitting in here, just to, you know, kind of give the full effect. But those are going to go in probably last because I need to paint the shell and I don't want to glue them in and just have one more thing I have to mask off before the car is painted. But yeah, so it is starting to come together and look a lot more like KITT. And once these door panels are in there, the interior is really going to look finished. So apart from that, I finished off the front fascia. So this piece is added and this piece here. I need to sand that down a little bit so that it's flush. I did sand the rest of the car down a bit more, like on all these areas where I joined everything. So hopefully it's not going to be too bumpy. I won't know until I hit it with some primer. And then I did put this middle piece in for the T-top, and I basically just cut it to fit and then glued it in, and it's in there super snug. Like I can like pick it up by that. So what is left pretty much at this point is I need to make the T-top. I'm still kind of figuring out in my head how that's going to work. And I've got to do the windows as well. And then I still need to go to FedEx office and print off the graphics for all the buttons and everything, and then try to get all that to fit. And then of course the light up front, which is going to be super easy. I just have to like wire it, and actually I think it's already wired. I think I just have to glue it in place and add batteries. I do have another component that I'm waiting on in the mail for this that I don't want to talk about yet because I think it'll be a cool surprise if I can make it all work. So I'm holding off on that as well. But I really wanted to do an update on this since it had been such a long time, and I wanted to, you know, frankly make some progress on it because I'm still excited about this project and I think it's coming along. Let's get Michael here with him. Once this is done and this is all glossy black and you've got the light going and Michael's standing next to it and it's in that diorama, it's gonna look so dope. So I'm really excited about that.
So that'll wrap part 4 of the series. This will end up being 5 parts. I think I can finish everything I need to do in one more video. So I want to thank you all for watching. Thanks for tuning in and checking back on this. I'm glad we were able to get back to it this week. You know, as I mentioned at the outset of the video, it's been a while and you know, I kind of had some mental blocks going, but I was able to get back to it and make some real progress. And I think it's looking pretty good. I'm excited to get the finishing touches on it. You know, I think in the next video is when everything's going to come together, so that's going to be a lot of fun. Quick note, I just hit 1,000 subscribers. I want to thank you all so much for your support, your views, your comments, engaging with me and talking to me about this stuff. I even actually had one person start a kit on their own based on this recipe, so that was very cool to see. So if you enjoy this kind of stuff and you haven't subscribed yet to the channel, please come along and hit that button and join as we wrap this up and do other fun stuff. There's gonna be more vehicles, more custom figures, more dioramas. I love this stuff and I love sharing it with you all. So thank you again for 1,000 subscribers. That means the world to me. Hitting that goal before the end of the year was a big thing for me. We got a couple weeks left in December and we nailed it. So thank you guys. So that'll do it for this video. Until next time.
Keep your head on swivel, Michael.